Alexander was successful, wealthy, powerful, yet he felt empty. A string of failed relationships left him jaded. Each woman, it seemed, was captivated by his fortune, not his heart. He yearned for a love that ran deeper than the shimmer of diamonds, a love that saw him, the man behind the empire. Loneliness was a constant companion in his opulent mansion. His life, a series of lavish parties, felt like a beautifully crafted stage play, impressive but lacking soul. One chilly November evening, an invitation arrived, a charity gala hosted by a prominent art patron. Alexander almost declined, weary of the charade. Yet, something compelled him to attend. Perhaps a flicker of hope, a whisper of change in the air. Tonight, he vowed, he would search for something real, something true. The grand ballroom buzzed with activity. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow on the elegantly dressed guests. Alexander stood by the bar, a silent observer amidst the orchestrated chaos. His eyes scanned the room, searching, though he knew not for what. Then he saw her. Across the crowded room their eyes met. She was radiant, her smile gentle and genuine. Unlike the other women, her gaze held no avarice, only warmth and a hint of sadness that mirrored his own. In that instant, the world around him faded away. He navigated through the throng of people, drawn to her like a moth to a flame. "You must be Alexander," she said, her voice soft and melodic. As the evening progressed, Alexander found himself drawn to Sophia's quiet elegance. She wasn't interested in his wealth or status, engaging him in conversations about art, philosophy, and the meaning of life. He felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long time. Sophia, in turn, was intrigued by the vulnerability Alexander hid beneath his polished exterior. She recognized a kindred spirit, someone who understood the ache of loneliness despite having it all. They spent hours talking, lost in their own world amidst the opulent surroundings. As the gala drew to a close, Alexander knew he couldn't let her slip away. Under the soft glow of the streetlights, he gathered his courage. Sophia's heart fluttered at his words. She felt the same undeniable connection. However, a shadow of doubt lingered in her mind. Could she trust this man who seemed to have everything, yet carried such sadness in his eyes? "Perhaps we could start with dinner. I promise, no grand gestures, just a chance to get to know each other better." Sophia, touched by his sincerity, found herself agreeing. As they said their goodbyes, a wave of hope washed over her. Maybe this time it would be different. Maybe Alexander was indeed the man she had been waiting for. The following days were a whirlwind of stolen moments and whispered promises. Yet amidst the burgeoning happiness, a seed of doubt remained. One evening, while having dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant, Alexander received a call. It was his friend Mark, urging him to come to a nearby bar. "You won't believe who's here," Mark said, his voice laced with amusement. Reluctantly, Alexander agreed. He excused himself from the table, promising Sophia he'd be back soon. As he entered the dimly lit bar, his blood ran cold. Sitting at the counter, flirting shamelessly with the bartender, was his ex-girlfriend Isabella. Isabella, the woman who had broken his heart, the one who had fueled his cynicism about love. Seeing her again, especially with Sophia just a few blocks away, brought back a rush of painful memories. Anger surged through him, followed by a wave of nausea. How could she show her face here after what she had done? Before he could confront her, Isabella turned, her eyes widening in mock surprise. "Alexander, fancy seeing you here," she drawled, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's been a while, darling." She leaned closer, her perfume a cloying reminder of their past. Unbeknownst to Alexander, Sophia had decided to surprise him at the restaurant. She had arrived just in time to see him enter the bar with Isabella. The sight of them together, Isabella clinging to his arm, sent a shard of ice through her heart. Memories of that night, the pain in Alexander's eyes, the bitterness in his voice came flooding back. It all made sense now. his reluctance to talk about his past, the shadows that haunted his happiest moments. He had never truly moved on, had he? Heartbreak washed over her, cold and suffocating. Trust, once broken, is a fragile thing, difficult to mend. She had allowed herself to believe in a future with Alexander, a future that now seemed like a cruel illusion. With a heavy heart, she turned and walked away, leaving behind the shattered remnants of her dreams. When Alexander returned to the restaurant, he found an empty table, the candlelight casting long, lonely shadows. Panic surged through him as he searched for Sophia, his heart pounding in his chest. Where could she be? Why hadn't she waited? He called her name, his voice echoing through the empty restaurant. The waiter, sensing his distress, approached him, a look of pity on his face. Days turned into weeks, each one an agonizing reminder of Sophia's absence. Alexander immersed himself in his work, trying to numb the pain, but it was no use. Sophia's laughter, her gentle touch, haunted his every waking moment. He visited her apartment countless times, but she was never home. He called her relentlessly, but her number went straight to voicemail. His messages, filled with apologies and pleas for another chance, remained unanswered. He was losing her, and the worst part was, he was to blame. One rainy afternoon, as he sat in his study, staring out the window at the storm raging outside, a glimmer of hope appeared. His housekeeper, Mrs. Davis, a kind woman who had witnessed his despair, handed him a letter. "This arrived for you today, Mr. Alexander," she said, her voice soft with sympathy. The letter was addressed in Sophia's elegant handwriting. His heart skipped a beat as he tore it open, his hands trembling with a mixture of anticipation and dread. As he read her words, a wave of relief washed over him, followed by a renewed sense of determination. Sophia had agreed to meet him, not at her apartment, but at the park where they had shared their first kiss. The park was deserted, the trees swaying violently in the wind. Raindrops pounded against the pavement, mirroring the frantic beating of Alexander's heart. He spotted Sophia sitting on their bench, her back to him, her shoulders slumped in sadness. He approached her slowly, his heart aching at the sight of her vulnerability. "Sophia!" he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. She turned, her eyes red-rimmed, her expression a mixture of pain and resignation. "You wanted to see me, Alexander?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. He sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance, his gaze fixed on hers. "Sophia, I know I hurt you, and I am so sorry." Seeing Isabella that night brought back a lot of painful memories I haven't shared with you. He told her about his past with Isabella, her manipulative ways, the way she had used his love and trust against him. He spoke of his fear of being hurt again, his cynicism a shield he had built around his heart. "When I met you, everything changed. You made me believe in love again, made me want to be a better man." Sophia listened intently, her heart torn between anger and compassion. She saw the genuine remorse in his eyes, the depth of his love for her reflected in his gaze. Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she listened to Alexander's heartfelt confession. His vulnerability, his willingness to confront his past and fight for their love, touched her deeply. She saw a man stripped bare, his soul laid open for her to see. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about letting go of the pain, giving someone a chance to redeem themselves. Alexander had made mistakes, yes, but he had also shown incredible growth and a capacity for love that she couldn't ignore. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Alexander," she began, her voice thick with emotion, "I believe you. I see the man you're striving to become, the man I know you can be." Relief washed over Alexander as he felt the warmth of her touch, the forgiveness in her eyes. He had been given a second chance, a chance to build a love based on honesty, trust, and unwavering commitment. He pulled her close, his embrace filled with gratitude and a love that ran deeper than any ocean. Life, as it always does, moved forward. Alexander, true to his word, dedicated himself to becoming a better man, a man worthy of Sophia's love. He continued his work with the children at the school, finding joy and fulfillment in their laughter and boundless energy. He sold his opulent mansion, a symbol of his materialistic past, and moved into a cozy cottage with Sophia. It wasn't about the size of their home, but the love that filled it, the laughter that echoed through its halls. They traveled the world together, not on lavish vacations, but on meaningful journeys that enriched their souls and strengthened their bond. They volunteered at homeless shelters, donated to charities, and dedicated their lives to making a difference in the world. Years later, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, Alexander and Sophia looked back on their lives with gratitude and contentment. They had faced their demons, overcome adversity, and emerged from the crucible of their experiences stronger and more in love than ever before. Their story was a testament to the transformative power of love, a reminder that true happiness lay not in material possessions, but in the embrace of a kindred spirit, a love that weathered every storm and emerged brighter for the wearer.